Many black people in this country, arguably the majority of black people in this country, do not want land. People will say, no, there's no such thing. There is. Many black people in this country, arguably the majority of black people in this country, do not want land. People will say, no, there's no such thing. There is. Black people in South Africa will leave villages, will leave townships, and migrate to another township or an informal settlement, a squatter camp, in urban areas close to cities because they are looking for opportunities to make money. They will leave big parcels of land to go and live in a shack because they want money. If it was only about land, many black people would go and live on Ingonyama Trust land. They'd go and live on other tribal communal land. They would go somewhere else, but they don't. They are economic migrants from the Eastern Cape, from the Free State, from KwaZulu, from Mpumalanga, from Limpopo, from other parts of the country that gravitate towards a Durban, that gravitate towards a Johannesburg, that gravitate towards a Cape Town, looking for opportunities for a better life, not looking for land. But of course, one of the conversations is it's because their land doesn't have opportunity. And the question becomes, who is meant to fix this? Is it government? Is it meant to be the people that are meant to farm and work the land or develop properties or find some type of tourist attractions? That becomes a very important conversation. The average black person in this country asked, they can lie to you in the comments, they can lie on polls on Twitter. The average black person in this country asked, would you like 2 hectares of land or would you like a job that gives you 30,000 Rand a month? I can tell you now they'll take the job. Some of them, you'll give them the land, let them have it for 5 years, and then thereafter ask them, do you still want to keep the land or do you want a job for 30,000? They will take the job. Because many people have received land and it lies fallow, or they sell it, or they lease it to someone else. Sadly, because our education system in this country is not focused on skills development. The average black child doesn't know how to farm and work the land. They don't understand it. The average black child doesn't know how to develop property on land, especially for commercial purposes. The average black child doesn't understand tourism, that I have a piece of land, I can have a tourist attraction to attract people, whether local tourists or foreign, to come to my piece of land, maybe watch dancing, maybe come watch the ocean or a piece of water, maybe come camp, maybe come hike, and I will make money here. The people are not taught skills. So land to them becomes something useless. I can give you a building on a small piece of land, the room the size of where we shoot on the panel show. And one person will look at this piece of land and say, I will plant spinach and sell that spinach to Spar, Pick and Pay, and make 10,000 Rand a month. The next person will say, on this piece of land, I'm going to open a spaza shop and I'm going to sell to people and I'm going to make 20,000 Rand a month. The next person will say, on this little piece of land, I'm going to dance every day and people will come watch me and throw money and I'll make 5,000 Rand a month. The next person will say, I'll take this piece of land and I'll let a 3-person family come rent it at 800 Rand per month. The next person will take this piece of property and land and say, I'm going to put a call center in here and there's going to be 10 people that work in a call center and the call center will generate 40,000 Rand a month. The next person will say, I'm going to take this little room, turn it into a hedge fund, and I'm going to bring hedge fund managers and we're going to manage 100 million Rand here and we're going to be making 1 million Rand a month on this same piece of property, based on your skills, based sometimes on your location, based on how industrious you can create this space. There's a joke that's always thrown around that if you took all the inhabitants of Sandton and you moved them to Alex forcefully, and you took all the inhabitants of Alexandra Township, and you've pushed them into Sandton, within 10 years, Alexandra will have developed and Sandton will have deteriorated. Because sometimes it's not about the land. It is about the skills and the mindset of the person on that piece of land.
Guys, my name is Golden Boy and today we want to talk about the land. And majorly, we were focusing on South Africa. Now, when you come to South Africa, you'll find that South Africa has been having a problem with land because they want the white Europeans to move, to leave them with their land. Now, guys, how did South Africa develop? South Africa developed through the colonizers. But in this case, it is very, very different when you look to other countries. In other countries, you'll find these colonizers took their resources back to their home. But in South Africa, these colonizers, the resources which they were having at that time, they were not going with them back at home, but they were building the South Africa. And that's why you'll find South Africa has developed. That is one of the scenarios. I have many scenarios about the land in South Africa. In this case, I'm talking about the several reasons why many black South Africans are not yet buying this land in South Africa. Despite many leaders pushing this agenda for the black South Africans to gain back their land, it is becoming unavailable and it is not prevailing well. Now guys, I wanted to talk about this. I wanted to start, but why is land a problem in South Africa? And one of the reasons is that land is really a significant issue due to the historical legacy of the colonialism and apartheid, which created deep inequalities in land ownership. During these periods, large portions of land were forcibly taken from indigenous black South Africans by European settlers. The Native Land Act 1913 and other apartheid-era policies restricted black people to black South African to small overcrowded areas such as homelands or Batusans, leaving most of the fertile and valuable land in the hands of the white minorities. Even after the apartheid ended in 1994, land ownership remained highly unequal because many black South Africans have little access to the land, which hampers economic opportunities and deep poverty. The government has attempted to address this through land reform programs, aiming to redistribute land to those who were dispossessed. However, the process has been slow and controversial, with challenges including bureaucratic inefficiencies, corruption, and concern from some groups about economic stabilities. Now, in recent years, you'll find that the debate has intensified with proposal for more radical solutions such as land expropriation without compensation, which has sparkled both support and concern domestically and internationally. The issues of land remain central to addressing historical injustice and achieving economic equality in South Africa. What do you think about these problems, as much as there are now available lands in South Africa? And now, in this case, it is very different between the South Africans and Africa. Now, when you come to Africa, one of the reasons why these people are not buying land or are not owning a lot of land, and if they're owning this huge a lot of land, they're not putting them into use. Because reason, when personally my mother has a large farm, but is not doing agriculture in that area because he's living in a town. Now, there are several reasons why black South Africans or why black people in Africa are not buying land despite the end of this colonization, despite the end of these people. I thought people will go back and start doing the agriculture. But in this case, both in South Africa and Africa, it is very different. Now, one is that the reason why I'm talking about the Africa is because Africa has a large, diverse land, and this land, you'll find that individual people are owning it, and they are not ready to scramble. But when you go to the European countries, the land is in the hands of the government, and like in this case in Africa. Now, one of the barriers is that the poverty and unemployment. Like, you'll find that a large portion of black South Africans still live in poverty, and many are unemployed or underemployed. With limited financial resources, it is difficult for them to buy land. And limiting access to credit is also many people, especially in rural and poor urban areas, struggle to access loans or credit due to lack of collateral or formal employment. Without credit, buying land becomes nearly impossible. And another one is about the historical and structural inequality, which I already talked about, the legacy of apartheid and even the unequal development. Why am I talking about unequal development? Is because many rural areas where black Africans live were under development during apartheid, with poor infrastructures, education, and access to resources. This unequal development has hindered economic growth and ability to these communities to acquire land. Now, government land reform policies are also one of the indicators which are affecting the black people in Africa, in South Africa. Now, because the government may not support for new landowners, even when the land is redistributed. New landowners often lack the financial or technical support needed to make the land productive, which limits economic value. Then uncertainty around land expropriation, political uncertainty. Ongoing debates around land expropriation without compensation have created uncertainty in the land market. Some potential buyers are hesitant to purchase land due to concern that it might be exploited in the future. Now, these factors combine to make land ownership challenging for many black African and South African, despite the end of this apartheid and efforts at the end the land reforms. Now, major things that have come to learn is that about the economic disparity, and many Africans are really lazy. They don't want to put an input. They don't want to be productive in those lands. Reason is they are copying the colonizers, and that is one of the reasons you'll find that many Africans are not buying land. But you'll find the foreigners or the investors will come to your community and buy those lands, because even if you go to the rural places, you'll find that there are large pieces of land which are not put into use. And you'll find that a family has almost 8 children, but they are only using a small portion of land only for the production of food. And the reason why they're not using the other part is because of economic disparity, which I've already talked about. But in South Africa, it is very different. Government is not supporting these new landowners. And that is the reason why most of the South Africans are not buying land in South Africa. I believe I have answered your question, and see you in another episode. Check kama ilikuwa na record. Ina record bado?